Hey, good morning, Trondheim friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Patio Ponderings. I'm Pastor Sue, and I am on the front driveway right in front of the main entrance to Trondheim Lutheran Church. And I'll talk a little bit about why I chose this spot as we move through this episode. The scripture reading for this past Sunday was what I think is a familiar one to many of us. It is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And in the sermon on Sunday, Hannah, who preached it, referred to it, as most of us know it, as the wedding text, right? This is the wedding scripture. And indeed, I have preached on this many, many times at weddings. We kind of look at these words that come out of this chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. We hear love is patient, love is kind, love is not arrogant or boastful or rude. And then we look at it as kind of a recipe for a happy marriage. And here's the thing. This scripture has absolutely nothing to do with marriage, nothing to do with romantic love at all, or even interpersonal relationships and how we relate as individuals to each other. This is part of a letter that Paul writes to to the church in Corinth, and in it he is pretty angry at this church. This is a reprimand. He is scolding them. They are plagued by conflict and division, and he's trying to get them set right again. But what I tell people is not to be disillusioned by that when we hear it in a marriage context, because one of the most common images of our relationship to Jesus in Scripture is that of the church being the bride to Jesus as the bridegroom. So it still does have much to say when we think about marriage. But what I have been thinking about then is, how do we go back to also hearing this scripture as the church together? What does it say to us as the church together, and how do we reflect on it? And so I'm in the first couple of verses, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have all the faith in the world so I can move mountains, if I give away all my possessions, if I do all these things, but I don't have love, then I am nothing. I gain nothing. And I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, I'm an annoyance and a disruption. In other words, if we believe all the right things, if we actually do all the right things as a church, even if we have the absolutely correct theology, if we understand all the mysteries of God and we don't do it though with love, we're nothing. We are just an annoyance to the world and to our neighbor. Ouch, that's a really strong statement. But it really does point to, then, it should clarify for us again that what the essential nature of the church and what the essential purpose of the church is love. And love is a relational word. It has to do with our relationship with God and with our neighbor. And it has to do then in how we live in love. Doesn't matter if we have all the other things figured out exactly right. If we don't have love, then we're nothing. And I think this has happened in our culture, where people in our culture don't see the church as a loving place. When people are asked to describe the church in research, love is not at the top of the list. So I think it would be helpful for us as the church to go back and hear this again as the church, and not just as a married couple. And there's grace here though too. It's not just about how we're failing. It's a reminder that, you know what, we aren't always going to get it right. It says, you know, right now we see in a mirror dimly. Someday we'll see fully. So we have to do this residing in the mystery and know that we're not going to get it all right, that we're not going to have all the things figured out. So let's live our lives together in love and do the best we can. As always, I'd love to hear what you have to say and how you might be hearing this today as an individual and as the church. Have a great day. We'll see you on Sunday. Bye.